We're starting on intercepts today, so in your notes, hopefully you have a 3-ring binder. If not, you need to get one. There's the intercepts is the word. So we're starting on intercepts today. This is still part of linear equations. And we've kind of already talked about the y-intercept a little bit. So this problem number 1, don't write that down in your notes. That is review from last week, okay? So these first few problems, don't put them in your notes. This is just simply review from last week. So last week we talked about how to find the slope of a line, and we talked about how to do that when you have a graph. And when you have a graph, if you will kind of draw a triangle connecting those those points, right? The 2 points that you're given. And in Khan Academy, you have to find your own points, and you just find points that go right through intersections. But here we're given points. And so when you do that, your triangle, you end up with a rise, or remember that can be a fall if it's negative, over a run. And when you find your slope, you just simply count how many spaces does it rise. So 1, 2, 3. So your rise is 3. And then your run to the right is positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Can't be reduced, so your slope is just 3 over 8. Okay? Oh, did I not get any negative ones? I didn't. Oh, well. The computer just kind of randomly makes them for me, so I'm gonna change this one a little bit. So ignore that blue line, and I'm gonna put one right here. And I'm gonna do a line like this because I want to talk about a negative one. Okay, so ignore that blue line. All right, so if we have a line like our red line here, we're going to keep this point and this point right here, even though my line is really wonky. Those are the 2 points. You're still going to draw your triangle, okay? Still going to draw your triangle. Now, in this case, instead of having a rise, you have a fall, and that's okay. That just means that your slope is negative, and then you still have a run right here. So you still have m equals, and your fall now is 1, 2, 3. Right? So we fell 3 or negative 3. And then we run 1, 2, 3. So that's a positive 3, which reduces to negative 1. You could also do a triangle like this. Okay, you're still going to get the same answer. I'll show you. When you do a triangle like this, you have a rise. That's a positive number. And we rose 3. But when we ran backwards. And backwards is negative 3. And regardless of whether the negative is on top or bottom, it still reduces to negative 1. So when you have a line running downhill, either your top or your bottom needs to be negative. Okay? And it doesn't matter which one. All right. Let's see. We're going to skip number 3. I think that's pretty straightforward. This is a special case. So what's our slope equal on this special case? Does anybody remember which one this is? 0. Yeah, good. Your slope here is 0. Okay. A good memory trick is that you can make a Z with these lines. Okay. The slope of a horizontal line or straight across is 0. Just throwing one out here. If we add a line here, what's the slope of the red line? Montana, do you remember? Undefined. Good. And the reason it's undefined is because you end up with a 0 in the bottom, and that's a big math foul. Can't have that. You can also write it like this. And you can kind of remember it as you can make an N with this, and that's no slope or undefined. Okay? All right. And then we also, this is just like our jump start. You don't have to write this down either. This is review as well. So when it says find the slope and you're given 2 points, you have to use the equation m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you got to name your points x1, y1, and x2, y2. And then you plug them into the equation. So in this instance, we have m equals, our y2 is 14 minus our y1, which is 20, over our x2, which is negative 18, minus our x1, which is 8. 14 minus 20, when you have 14 and you take 20 away, you end up negative 6. And negative and the negative here on the bottom goes deeper negative, so that's negative 26. 6. And then both of those are divisible by 2. So 2 negatives reduced to a positive, so you can drop the negative signs. And then 6 divisible by 3 is 2, or by 2, let me say that again. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 26 divided by 2 is 13. And then that can't be reduced anymore. Okay? When you have one like this one, this will be the last one like this we do. We're still going to use the same formula, so I'll kind of move it so you can see it. We still name our points. Okay, we still have x1 and y1, and we have x2 and y2. And we still plug in m equals y2 is 18 minus 7. And then x2 is negative 18 minus a negative 18. Well, remember, minus is part of your formula, and then you stick that negative 18 in there. So you actually have 18 minus 7 and then negative 18 plus 18, because 2 negatives go positive. And then 18 minus 7 is 11. Negative 18 and positive 18 is what? Can you have a 0 in the bottom in math? So what's your slope here? Undefined, that or undefined. Okay? All right, this is where we're going to go into some new stuff. So this is where you will start taking notes. And today we're going to be talking about intercepts. Intercepts just means intersection, right? So if you know that the x-axis is right here, right? This is your x-axis, and I cannot draw a straight line on this to save my life, but your x-axis goes horizontal, and then your y-axis is the axis that goes straight up and down, okay? Your intercepts sit right on the axes, and it's just where they cross. So if you look at your x-intercept and it's a positive 1, you find your x-intercept, or your x-axis, which is the side-to-side one, you find the positive 1 and you put a point, and that is graphing the x-intercept. So think intersection right on the axis, okay? Then it says the y-intercept is positive 2. Well, your y-axis is the one that goes up and down. You find the positive 2 and you put a point. Now, can I sketch a graph of a line with 2 points? Do I have enough? Yep. So let me see if I can do this with the line tool and make it a little bit straighter. We'll try that. Not sure if it'll work, but I'm going to try. Well, there you go. And it's white, so you can't even see it. So let's change it to black. Does that work? There we go. And there's our line that fits the description of the x-intercept and the y-intercept of where they are, okay? Now, a couple of things about intercepts. If I were to ask you to tell me the coordinates of this blue point right here, we know the y part of this is a 2, right? Because we're told that the y-intercept is 2. What's the x value of this coordinate? Cole, what do you think? Do I run left or right at all? Okay, what's the x value right here? 0. So for the y-intercept, your x is always 0, always. Okay, it has to be. Because if your x value was anything other than 0, it would move left or right, and then it would fall off of that axis, right? Now, if you look at the x point right here, okay, this point, if we want the coordinate of that, we know the x value is what? 1, and x values always come first in the coordinates. What do we know about the y? No, look at the y value of this point right here. Does it go up or down at all? So the y value is 0. The unique thing about intercepts is that the y-intercept, the x is always 0. The x-intercept, the y is always 0. So if you're asked to graph it, you can graph it. If you're asked to identify the coordinate, you can just, so without even graphing it, without even thinking at all, okay, if I were to ask you, what is the coordinate of this intercept? It's the x-intercept, so it tells me the x is 4. What is my y? 0, always. The opposite is always 0. Then if I'm asked to give the coordinate of the y-intercept, because it's the y-intercept, I know the y is 3 because it's the y-intercept. What's my x? 0. Okay, now you can also graph these points. So if we graph the x-intercept, we just look at the x-axis, which is this one. We find 4, positive 4, and we put a point right on the x-axis. X-intercepts sit right on the x-axis. If we look at the y-intercept, it says y equals 3. You find your y-axis, which is the up and down axis, and you find positive 3, and you put a point. Remember, intercepts sit right on the axis. Again, do I have enough to graph this line now? I do. I just connect the 2 points. So you'll notice, and your worksheet looks just like this. Notice the directions. It says sketch the graph of each line and state the coordinates of the x and y intercept. So you're going to plot both of them, draw the line, and, whoops, you're going to plot both the x-intercept, the y-intercept. You're going to draw your line. That's graphing the line. Then you're going to state, and you want to label them here, and I didn't, and I just messed up here. You want to put x equals, because that's your x-intercept. And if it's x equals, it should match what x-intercept is. And then for the other one, you're going to put y equals. And because it's y equals, the y value should match what the y-intercept is. So honestly, the hardest part is remembering which one's your x-axis and your y-axis. That's pretty straightforward. And then it's remembering when you're writing a point, the x value always comes first when you write an x point. So for the x-intercept, you're going to put the value in the x spot. For the y-intercept, you're going to put the value in the y spot, and then the opposites are always 0. Okay? Let's do one more, and then we'll call it done. Let's do this one because these are both negatives. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write what my x coordinate is. So Jalen, what am I going to put in these brackets for my x and my y value? First, I'm going to put x equals, right? X equals. Yeah, perfect. And then I'm going to put y equals. And Bryce, what am I going to put here? Good, 0, -1. Because it's the y, it's got to match the y in the y spot. And the other is always 0. And then when it's the x, right, the x matches the x in the x spot, and the other is 0. And then we'll graph these really quickly. So x equals -2. This one's my x-axis right here. And -2 is backwards. It's back here on this -2, but it's still on the x-axis. And then my y equals -1. Well, my y-axis is my up and down one. So I just simply find -1 on my y-axis. And then once I have 2 points, pretty straightforward, I can draw my line. Okay? Graph it with the 2 points on the graph, and then give the coordinates of both of those points off to the side. Any questions on that? All right, for those of you at home, once you've watched the video and taken notes in your 3-ring binder, go ahead and click the load button at the bottom of the assignment, and it will open up your assignment in Kami. And then make sure you show all of your work just like I did here on these examples. And then when you are done, hit submit and submit. And then if you're not done with your Khan Academy assignments from Monday, go ahead and finish those up and get those finished up by 4 o'clock today as well. Email me if you have any questions.